Well, good evening. Thank you for being here. I wanted to start by thanking John and Catherine Haroldson and their family for the gift that allows us to each year welcome a wonderful world-class ensemble to come and inspire us and give us news, artistic news from the wider world, and to inspire our musicians. We really enjoyed the master classes this afternoon, and I think you're in for a real treat tonight. Please welcome the Apollo Chamber Players.
And still we cross.
I walk in their footsteps.
The heartbeat in the silence.
Good evening, everyone. How you guys doing tonight? Oh, you can do better than that. How you guys doing tonight? All right. Well, we are so happy to be here. We're the Apollo Chamber Players from Houston, Texas. We are very happy to be here at St. Andrew's School. We've had a wonderful time with you all today, and honored to present this program, this American Story program, for you tonight. So a few introductions. My name is Matthew Dietrich. I am the director and one of the violinists of Apollo Chamber Players. I grew up actually just a little bit north of here in York, Pennsylvania. Anybody, York? Okay, all right. And I didn't realize when I came from a musical family, but I had many other interests like space, and I wanted to be an astronaut, actually. And when my 5th grade teacher told me to shoot for the stars, I had no idea that I would end up in Space City, Houston, Texas, and where I founded Apollo almost 20 years ago now. So, and it's brought me back here to the area where I grew up, so it's very special. So, good to be here again.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Annabelle Ramirez, and I am originally from Mexico. I came to Houston in Texas to study music performance, and then I tried Canada for a little bit for my master's, but I decided it was way too cold up there, so I came back to Houston where it's warm, and stayed there ever since. And I've been playing with Apollo Chamber Players since 2012.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Dudzik. I'm a cellist here in Apollo. I grew up in the great state of Minnesota, another northern state. Very fond of it still till today. But went down to Texas for my schooling via Dallas first, and then ended up in the great city of Houston, where I met and went to school with Matt here. And we've been playing chamber music together for a very long time. Glad to be still doing so.
Hello, my name is Arya Chiragosha, and I play the viola. And I grew up originally in Durham, North Carolina, and then I kind of, after high school, lived all up and down the East Coast for college, and lived in Boston, and then New York City, and then DC the past 5 years. And I just moved to Houston to play with Apollo in October, although I was commuting back and forth, flying all the time from DC to Houston. So I'm very happy that now I live in Houston.
And you're looking forward to the summer.
I am looking forward to the very humid summer there.
So, the mission of Apollo is to create cultural harmony through musical exploration. And we do, one of the ways that we do that is by reflecting the diversity of not only Houston, Texas, which is one of the most diverse cities in the United States, if you did not know that, but also kind of reflecting the diversity of America and why that makes it great and strong and beautiful. So we have over 70 commission works, multicultural works to Apollo Chamber Players in our catalog right now. And we just performed for you the most recent commission. It's titled "And Still We Cross" by a Haitian American composer named Daniel Bernard Romain, otherwise known as DBR. And I must tell you that this piece was directly inspired by AI. Not artificial intelligence, but ancestral intelligence. Okay, all right. I'll give you a moment on that one. So when we were crafting our American Story season, I'm sure you are aware that we are celebrating the 250th anniversary, the birthday of America this year. We wanted to kind of tell that in a more diverse and inclusive way. So as part of that, we contacted Kenneth Morris, who is the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass and the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington. And yes, their family tree intersects. So I presented him with this idea of writing a poem, an essay, around his heritage and how he would, how he feels about what's going on in America today, and his personal kind of recollections. So, and what he's inspired about. So he came back to us with a really wonderful essay titled "The River Between Us," and it talks about migration patterns and the Rio Grande. Also juxtaposing with the Rio Grande with the Underground Railroad, where people were seeking freedom many decades ago. So it's a very powerful work that the composer, Daniel, then made a libretto and created a piece for us, a commission for string quartet, vocal quartet, and Kenneth as the narrator. It was such a powerful piece that we had Daniel, the composer, also arrange a string quartet version, which you heard this evening, titled "And Still We Cross," so we can, bring it to many audiences around the country and the world. So we hope you enjoyed that first commission work. Now for something a little bit different, we are going to honor our Texas roots and perform a piece by a Texas composer named Julia Smith. You've probably never heard of her. Because she was a female, she was not afforded many of the same opportunities as her male counterparts during her career, but she was extremely prolific. She wrote some music for the inauguration of LBJ in 1964, also some operas, and she ended her career in New York City at the Juilliard School. So, we found this piece kind of languishing in the University of Texas Library about 10 years ago. We kind of unearthed it and are revitalizing it and giving it new life, and we're happy to present it for you today. This is Julia Smith's Quartet for Strings. All right. Thank you all so much. So, who out there has read any banned books lately? Anyone? What have you read? Go ahead.
Huckleberry Finn.
Huckleberry Finn. Okay, what else? Did anyone? Go ahead. The Great Gatsby. These are great answers. Anyone else? Catcher in the Rye. Okay. Wow. Banning books is not wonderful, but your answers are very wonderful. About 3 years ago, in the height of kind of the book banning epidemic, I think we can call it that, we had an entire season around censorship, and one of the pieces that we commissioned from a Houston-based composer named Mark Buller is inspired, unfortunately, by book banning. He came back to us with a piece for string quartet. It's in 5 movements, and we're not going to play them all for you this evening, but we will play a number of these that you all just mentioned here. It's the title, the metaphor of the title is very powerful, titled Firewall, and that basically means that every time one of you reads a banned book, you're creating a firewall against censorship. So on that note, what are we going to start with here? Okay, let's start with Catcher in the Rye. How about that, all right? Catcher in the Rye. And this movement is titled Through the Rye. Okay, who said Huck Finn out there? Huck Finn. All right, you want a little Huck Finn? Okay, beautiful. This is a beautiful movement. It's called Night and Day on the River, and this is inspired by that moment when Huck is on the raft with Jim, who's an enslaved person, kind of wrestling with what he should do, what morality dictates that he should do. So versus what society is telling him to do. So it's a very beautiful kind of on the river kind of piece. So we hope you enjoy Night and Day on the River. Annabelle is our Huck Finn. And we end Firewall with a really fun rag, jazzy type piece movement called Daisy and Jay. Please enjoy. From The Great Gatsby. This is kind of a musical elegy and tribute to the 125,181 Japanese Americans that were interned during World War II. This piece, like I said, it's very elegiac and moving. There's a moment in the middle, towards the end, second half of the piece, where we speak random names of those that were interned to kind of give them new life. And then at the end of that, I am going to speak some names by someone you may be familiar with. Who knows who George Takei is? Okay, everybody should know who George Takei is. Aside from, I'm a big Star Trek fan, but aside from his work with Star Trek and in the movie and film industry, he's an activist for many different things, gay rights, and also kind of he actually stood in front of Congress in 1980, getting reparations for Japanese Americans, and was successful in doing so. So he's lived a very meaningful and activist life, and I think it can inspire us all. So there's a moment when I will speak his name. Actually, after the premiere in Houston, this was originally composed without him, but I was inspired to reach out to him and his management, and he was so gracious in lending his talents and his voice to be a part of the commission. So we don't have George here today, unfortunately, but this is, I think it's still a very meaningful piece, and we hope you can reflect on what this means today. Please enjoy The Book of Names by Marty Regan.
Kiyomatsu Mutashita.
Chie Nagasaki.
Kiyomatsu Omura.
Isaku Ota. Bunjiro Miura.
Yai Isoda.
Ishiro Oeda.
Haramatsu Shinada.
Saji Murayama.
Kyo Murano.
Chozo Nagamatsu.
Mason Kato.
Toyoko Aoki.
Kuma Sonabe.
Jo Hiratsuka.
Tami Miura.
Shisuno Kawada.
Gozo Suzuki.
Ryu Yasu.
Tokijiro Tezuka.
Sasaichi Yamamoto.
Choi Koga.
Yoshi Hanamura.
Tomiye Ikeda.
Hiroko Ni.
Yasu
Iye
Take.
Izumi.
Shiohiko Narita.
Jay
Koichi
Yoshida.
Yamano.
Yokoshima Ikagima.
Take
Ichiro
Kiyama.
Okamoto.
Isano
Ryo
Ishigiwa.
Naiki.
Shin Goto.
Sujiro Kaneda.
Misako Morita. Masao
Kyoto.
Ueda.
Kazu Nakamura.
Senso
I-
Umeda.
Ichuo Goto.
Isawada Yamaguchi.
Sen
Nitso Yoshida.
Miyamoto.
Yeo Isoda.
Kuma Nakao.
Tami Goto.
Hanjiro Honda.
Masami Miyata.
Daikuro Yoshida.
Seiichi Doi.
Sono Taniguchi.
Koji Yoshida.
Katsuji Abe.
Utaru Frank Hashimoto.
Nisaburo Tamura.
Tazu Yoshijima.
Zenhei Ota.
Heizo Higuchi.
Ko Tashima.
Naomi Kawayoshi.
Kimi Tanaka.
Sae Kaneko.
Takekuma Norman Takei. Fumiko Emily Takei. Henry Hosame Takei. Nancy Reiko Takei. George Hisato Takei.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to play this next selection, and then we thought, Fred and I thought maybe we could have a little bit of a respite, a little break a few minutes before the final piece, which is the Mendelssohn String Quartet. And if you all have any questions, we'd be happy to take them. So be thinking about your questions now. So this next commission is also one of our more recent ones. It's titled Tolo. It's by an Afghan American composer named Humayun Saki. A number of years ago, we commissioned him for a piece that we premiered at the Holocaust Museum in Houston, kind of when a lot of the pullout of American forces in Afghanistan was occurring, and we wanted to do something to kind of highlight the incredible, wonderful people of Afghanistan and their amazing folk music. Humayun plays this instrument. It's called a rhubarb. It's kind of a little like a mountain dulcimer, if you know what that is. It's thousands of years old. He's kind of the virtuoso in this instrument. So the first piece that we commissioned from him was for string quartet and then this instrument rhubarb. We loved working with him so much that we commissioned this next piece, string quartet, Tolo, which means sunrise. We've been doing a lot of heavy music today on this program, and this, coming from somebody from Afghanistan, I think this is even more meaningful that he still retains and holds on to hope for humanity. So we hope you enjoy Tolo by Hawaiian Saki. I think, actually, Fred said there may be a couple of students from Afghanistan here. Is that true? Anyone? Don't be shy. Okay, well, we hope you enjoy this piece inspired by your culture and your wonderful folk music. So please enjoy. Thank you. All right, everybody, that was Tolo. Yes, now we get to a little bit of audience participation. Who has some questions out there? Don't be shy. Yes, please. And speak loudly, please.
But how does your iPad scroll?
Well, we thought you were going to ask about the pedals here, but yeah, but that actually that is the question. Do you want to hold that up?
Yes, sir.
So these are our little foot pedals that turn the pages. And actually, there's also a program too that will, if you move your cheek a little bit, it'll turn the page too. But we haven't. We don't want that on photography, you know, on pictures. Right cheek. Yes, and go ahead. Yes, go ahead, please.
What other instruments do you guys play?
What other instruments do we play? Well, I'll start over there.
I started on viola, and then I played a little bit of violin. I played a tiny bit of guitar and piano. Tiny.
Wait, that's right. You play guitar. Okay. All right. We should hear more of that.
I only play cello, but I started in elementary school singing. That's right. That's how I got interested in music. I went to a kind of an unconventional elementary school. We started every day with group song, and so my parents saw that I took a liking to that, and a musical instrument was sort of a natural next step for me.
When we practice together, sometimes we sing. So yes, it's important.
I only play the violin, but I did have to learn a few guitar chords when I was teaching toddlers music and movement classes.
I played some piano growing up as well, and now with my son, I'm kind of dabbling in that again. So you were probably actually a more interesting answer to that question is one of our commissions from last year. It's by this wonderful Iranian American composer that's at Carnegie Mellon. His name is Reza Vali, and he wrote us a piece for string quartet, percussionist, who is another Iranian-born percussionist, a fabulous performer, and singing string quartet. So we all played some percussion instruments and had to learn how to sing, and it was really kind of nice for him to trust us in doing that.
I played the darbuka.
Yes, please.
How do you decide what type of music, like if it's softer or intenser, evokes which issues? Like, for example, like why did that piece like make sense about Huck Finn?
That's a good question. So a lot of that kind of is inspired by the composer and the conversations that we have beforehand. It's really wonderful to be able to cultivate the creativity in others. So as you all kind of go out into the world too, and you know, I know people are investing a lot in you right now, but at some point you'll be able to invest in others and kind of cultivating the creativity in others is something that's very important to us now too. So that was a long way of saying that when we approach a composer with an idea, we give them some sort of framework, and then they can kind of within that framework come back with something and use their imagination to tell the story they want to tell. So yeah, it was very interesting what he came up with those with the band books and how that was inspired. And then also, you know, thinking about the mood of the Book of Names. I mean, I think that mood is very well set by the composer, much more reflective too. So we would, you know, definitely wouldn't want something up tempo for that. Yes, please go ahead. How often do we practice as a quartet and individually? Well, that's a great question. What do you play? The violin. Okay, so as a violinist or string player, you need to practice at least, you've probably heard that 10,000 hours thing. We've all kind of put in our 10,000 hours, and it's a good time to do that. The best time to do that is when you're young. We're a little bit, you know, in approaching our middle age years here, or very much in our middle age years. That's a long way of saying that we don't maybe practice as much as we did when we were younger individually, but we lean on kind of the work that we did technically and musically when we were younger in the practice rooms, right? And as a group, this is pretty much our full-time job, so we rehearse 2 or 3 times a week. And then when things get more intense around concert times, we, you know, rehearse as much as we need to. Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering on why you guys switch places depending on what piece you play.
So in a string quartet, right? Like kind of the genesis of a string quartet back in the classical era, without getting too much in the weeds. You know, the first violin had more of the melody lines. You have like the soprano line, if you will, the alto line, second violin, so more supporting. The viola line, even more supporting, kind of the tenor voice, and then the bass, the cello. So Haydn, Mozart's time, you know, the string quartet was a little bit more disjointed in the fact that the first violin mainly had the melody. And then the Romantic era up until the present day, it's much more equal. And in fact, a lot of our commissions often begin with viola solos, which is pretty awesome. So how we decide, I think it's really special for us to be able to switch first and second violin depending on what piece speaks to us. So we 99% of the time never argue about that, right? Okay, a couple more questions. Yes. Anyone from the rafters up there? No?
This one here.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Whoever wants to go there, go ahead.
What's the coolest place y'all performed at?
The coolest place. Well, we were in Cuba in 2017, right after the relaxation of the embargo. We were, I think, the first American chamber ensemble to travel to Cuba in 50 plus years at that time. It was a really special experience to be able to go. We actually performed with a Cuban percussionist and recorded in Abdallah Studios, where Buena Vista Social Club and some other, really famous Cuban musicians have performed. And it was really interesting too to see the juxtaposition between, kind of other Latin countries that weren't open to freedom, and kind of thinking about how, and especially right now, the people of Cuba are very much suffering.
Yeah, we had a chance to perform at the Kennedy Center, I guess a couple of years ago, and it was a commission called Mekong, and it was about cities that are connected by rivers and civilizations that are connected by rivers, and I thought that was a really cool idea, but it was multimedia and combined a lot of different Asian instruments and the string quartet, and I got to play the gongs there.
Yeah, and we also danced.
And yeah, that's right, we did that.
So that was in the when Kennedy Center was still a viable thing. For sure. Any other where's the coolest place you've performed, Aria?
I played Mahler 9 in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam. That was pretty cool. It was a very, very beautiful hall. As is this one, though.
Yeah. Yeah, we feel very lucky to perform here. And kind of, I'll mention that one of the most meaningful places that we've been performing recently are at public libraries. We've been bringing our commissions and doing free programs at libraries around Houston and other places, and it's really kind of a fun and meaningful thing to be able to bring music to people that would never, not normally be able to go to a concert hall setting. So that's been really fun too. How about two more quick questions here? All right, you guys have been great. Yes, go ahead.
Where did each of you classically train? How do you think that impacts the way you play?
I studied at Rice University, and I did my undergrad and master's there. And for me, I started playing violin when I was 3 years old. My mother taught my brothers and I. And kind of like I mentioned before, I played baseball, and I love space and all these other things. But going to Rice as a university rather than a conservatory was very instrumental in helping me become who I am today. Taking other classes in many other subjects and kind of being able to reflect on the world as well. So that's my story.
It's interesting because I grew up in Mexico, but I grew up during the fall of the Soviet Union. And so a lot of musicians ended up arriving in Mexico at that time. So I had a Ukrainian and a Russian teacher in Mexico. And then when I came to the US, I had the opportunity to study with a wonderful professor named Fredel Lack. And she was a previous student of Ivan Galamian at Juilliard. And then if you went back farther, they are like go all the way back to like Eugenie in Belgium. So it's a long line, and I think it's just kind of two different traditions. And I don't know, I think that informs my playing in many different ways.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to study with a cellist in the Minnesota Orchestra growing up. And again, it was because I had an interest in music and my parents had a friend. So he set me up right away and we started doing lessons. And then I came to Texas to study at SMU and then also at Rice University with Norman Fisher, who was a founding member of the Concord String Quartet. And they did a lot of new music. He was a big proponent of new music and being curious. So I think that my lineage there also informs the kind of work that I still do today.
When I was in middle school and high school in North Carolina, I studied with a couple teachers, and I did a lot of chamber music with the mother of Nicholas Kitchen, and Nicholas Kitchen is the first violinist of the Borromeo String Quartet. So I kind of found my love for quartet specifically there, and chamber music in general. And then I did my undergrad at New England Conservatory of Music in Boston, and that's a very heavy, lots of chamber music is kind of the focus. So yeah, I continued to do a lot of string quartet stuff there. I worked with Paul Katz, and my teacher was Kim Kashkashian there. And then I went to Juilliard for my master's after that and worked with Roger Tapping, who was also the violist of the Takash Quartet and the Juilliard String Quartet. So lots of quartet people, which makes sense why I ended up playing in a quartet.
Okay, as we kind of wrap this up, we have a question for you too, and a free CD. This is our most recent CD called Banned Stories of Censorship. It has some of the commissions that we performed for you tonight. Can anybody tell us, this is a very specific question, how many Japanese Americans were interned during World War II? Do you remember? This is kind of hard, I know. Yeah? Go ahead, yeah? 101,000?
Gotta get closer than that.
You can get, maybe let's get it to the 100. Yeah, go ahead.
125,000.
Yes, 125,181. All right, would you like a CD? Come on up and get your CD. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you guys know what a CD is, right? And you all can, I'm sure you guys are on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music. Invite you to stream our music there. Our next album is coming out in June. It's titled We the People, and it'll have some of our democracy-inspired programming. So as we finish with this wonderful string quartet by the German composer Felix Mendelssohn, one more question to you all. How do you think this German composer Mendelssohn connects to the American story? Anyone? Yeah? No. Okay. Well, I will tell you. It again has to do with some ancestral intelligence. Felix Mendelssohn's grandfather was named Moses Mendelssohn, and he was kind of the leader of the Jewish Enlightenment, which also kind of fostered our founding fathers and the Declaration of Independence and our founding documents here in America. So it's a really interesting and fun and meaningful connection between Mendelssohn and the United States and its founding. So this is a wonderful piece in 4 movements. He wrote this right after the death of his sister, and you can really hear kind of the despair and kind of the dark places that he goes with some hope as well for himself and hopefully for humanity. Please enjoy it.
There's a little more to this. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We had a wonderful time. What did you guys think of the program? All good, okay. Thank you again to Fred and to your staff for having us and director. So thank you so much, Fred. Do you have anything more to say? Okay, awesome. Would you guys? Yeah, okay.